Welcome your host, Caddy Frink, as she leads discussions about substance use disorder and the journey to recovery. You are listening to Redefining Recovery, a recovery revolution.
Well, good day, good day, good day. I am here with such a special guest. I can't even stand it. Thank you for listening to Redefining Recovery, a recovery revolution. I am Caddy Frink, and I am your host, and I am so excited to be here. I have an incredible human across the table from me. And what is your name, fine sir?
Hello, Buju, Ni Tamigabo, Indigenous Kaz, Magizi and Dudame, Mrs. Zaigani and Dunjaba. My name is Colin Cash. I'm from the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe.
And this is why I have him on, to have that beautiful language being spoken and to have that welcoming voice come here. Colin and I are going to be giving funky eyes back and forth with one another for anybody who watches the video in this one. So I want to welcome Colin Cash. I've known since he was a wee pup starting Sober Squad back in the day. So we're going to have to step back on that. But first and foremost, Colin, what's right with you today?
Oh wow, where do I start?
Short and sweet, baby.
Okay, so I am a relationship driven person, and so what is right with me today is the individuals in my life that I have relationships with that accept me, support me, love me, and encourage me. And what is right with you?
Wow, I don't know if I can even top that one. That was pretty awesome. Truth be told, we're on a coming holiday, and so there's some extra time off that's going to be happening for a lot of people. And so
Cheers.
I am very grateful that the weather has turned around here in Minnesota and it has stopped raining, and I get to get out in my garden, and I'm so excited. So excited to buy some plants and just do some gardening and do some planting, because that's my jam. That's my jam. So so that's what's right with me. So Colin, what I want you to do is I want you, first of all, like I said, we're going to be making funky googly eyes at one another for this whole thing. He thinks he's nervous, but this is a man who talks to very important people a lot. Yeah, you do. So, Colin, tell the folks where you work, what you're doing. And when we come back from our break that's coming up in a little bit, I want to have a little bit of your story. But what are you doing currently? Because you are representing many different facets of our recovery community. So give us a little sneak peek.
I'm the director of tribal development for Pathfinder Solutions. The guy who recruited me is Paul Wellstone Jr., goes by Dave. His dad was real influential within the tribal space with legislation, real progressive person in the Senate. And so he started a tech company called Pathfinder Solutions with a platform, and seeing that there was a need, given the disparities that exist within tribal communities, to do some work there. Come talk to me about it, encouraged me and supported me to make a difference in this space. And that began writing the Native American Peer Recovery Services model, getting it accredited, and training other peers on other reservations. And I'm also the vice chair on the Governor's Advisory Board, a few different other boards. Jules Fairbanks.
He's special, folks. He's special. He's got a lot.
I think I am sometimes.
Well, you are. That's amazing. What I would like to know is which tribes are you familiar with? And because part of the reason why I wanted to invite Colin Cash on is that we know that the Native American community is hard hit by substance use disorder, alcohol use, all those different things. And Minnesota Recovery Connection has been working for years with the community. And what I want to do is I want to recognize how much work you've done and who you work with, and then kind of expand on that.
Okay, so I remember when you were just a wee lad in the back room ordering our food for our class, and that began a relationship between me and MRC. And MRC was like the first organization to really empower and support and train to sort of address some of the disparities that exist within tribal communities before it was like cool.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
it was
we were kind of on the groundbreaking in the sense of bringing in you and bringing in the community and saying, hey, we got to recognize this stuff.
Yes. And the amount of education and support and resources and time really laid some of the foundation for the work that came after going through the Recovery Coach Academy through MRC, and working closely with MRC in the years since has had a profound impact in not only just my community, but across the state. And so that's where I initially met you, and that's sort of brought us to this forefront to where we are now. And I've done a lot of trainings with MRC in tribal communities. And I, for a lack of a better term, I found myself translating the material to make it applicable or applying to tribal communities.
Mm-hmm.
And what does this look like within a tribal setting, or what is the main core philosophy, and what does that look like when we implement it and incorporate our worldviews, philosophies, cultures, things like that. And so that was in the years of experience through training with you, it proved to be invaluable. And so when I transitioned to work for Pathfinder, one of the missions that I had was to design a culturally specific model to target tribal communities that incorporate culture, worldviews, philosophies, structures, and like just
the whole, really meeting the community where it's at. And
yes,
that is the whole essence of this whole peer recovery specialist world. And having had the incredible honor of doing, I don't know how many classes we did together, at least 4 or 5, 6 classes when we had that opportunity. I know I was training at like Caddy the trainer for Minnesota Recovery Connections, got to train peer recovery services. But what was always so valuable was having you in the class. And there's always this essence of bringing in the Native community's needs and taking those conversations. And I think one of the things we did like second or third class was brought in drumming. And brought in song. And what that did for me was medicines. I mean, all the different things. It just brought like a whole new world to this woman who has known that there are Native American individuals out there, but I other than being a child, I'll tell you that as a child, when I lived in South Minneapolis by the Minnesota art school, MCAD, Minnesota, whatever, MCAD, there was a Native American family that was on our block. I mean, we had everything represented on this block, and I'd go
Sounds like an awesome block.
It was an awesome block. I'd go missing at dinner time. So, it was classic back in the 70s, 70s-ish. So mom and dad would go walking down the block and come knocking at doors. Hello, is Caddy there? And all of a sudden my parents would see this little blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl sitting at this table with a large group of Native American individuals. And they're like, yeah, she's here. She's fine. Go home. She's good to go. And I mean, that's like the beautiful memory that I have. But we live in worlds that are kind of separate from one another. But since I've gotten to meet you, this is now like almost 8 years ago. And I have just become such a more whole person.
So was there some hazing that went on because of
hazing?
You being a
white girl in the middle of
yes.
You know what? There was, I think because I kind of knew what I was talking about. There was a little side eye going on every now and then. I don't think hazing directly, but maybe a little side eye. But that's okay. That's okay because they didn't know who I was, and I was trying to get to know the community.
Well, you passed the test.
Well, I passed the test only because I had good company. Okay, that's what it comes down to. Because what we do in this recovery world is we actually meet people and we begin to partner and we begin to build relationships, which is how we find recovery.
Yes.
So when we come back from break, I'm going to have Colin give a little snapshot of his story in his recovery journey. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come back and just talk more about this incredible topic. So thank you for listening to Redefining Recovery, a recovery revolution from Minnesota Recovery Connection. Welcome back. Welcome back. I got Colin across from me, and he's kind of doing a little like shifting in his chair to the happy-go-lucky music. Welcome back to Redefining Recovery, a recovery revolution. I'm here with whom?
Need tell me gobble. My government name is Colin Cash.
There we go. So I'm talking to Colin Cash, who is a Native American man from which?
Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe.
Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe. And what's important about doing this recovery work is that there are people from every single community, every single culture, every single group around the globe that struggle with substance use disorder. And so I invited Colin, and he can come back anytime, as many times he can bring his lovely partner.
Lies.
Total truth. To talk about these important topics. But first and foremost, I'd like people who are listening to know a little bit about Colin's story, from where you were in your usage time, maybe what that journey looked like, and now you're in recovery, and then we'll kind of expand on that.
Okay, so I think some of the contributing factors that led later on to severe substance use was the trauma that I experienced growing up, ACEs score, foster home, things like that. And it perpetuated this pattern of jails and institutions. And there was a piece of me, because I grew up in foster homes, that made me feel like I wanted to be like loved and accepted. And given the demographic of people that I was hanging around with, that meant gangs, womanizing, fighting, drinking, being crazy. And so there was a benefit to some of that and the attention that I received. And that led me in and out of incarceration at an early age, IV drug use. And then in December 18th of 2015, I had...
Not that you remember the date or anything.
Yeah, it was... I ended up overdosing on opiates. And they had to use Narcan to revive me, and I woke up in a hospital.
Wow.
But the last thought that I had before I went to sleep or died, or however you want to phrase that, was the pivotal moment. Two things happened. First, I realized that nobody is going to come and save me. I used to think that if people looked out for me like I looked out for them, or I used to have this weird, somebody's going to come and save me, pull me out of this life. And when I was essentially dying, coming to that revelation that nobody is going to save me. And then the last thought was, what are they going to tell my son, who was 8 years old at the time, over who his father was? And I had abandoned him, been incarcerated, and the story for once was objective in my eyes over who I was. I was, I'm going to use some stigmatizing language, but this is how I perceived myself at that time. I was a junkie inmate 218769, and I've been in and out of incarceration. I've never held a job. I didn't go to school. That was my story of who they were going to tell my son. And I realized then that that was not the story I wanted my son to hear. And things changed after that, when I realized nobody's going to come and save me. Nobody's going to pull me out of substance use. Nobody's going to give me the house and the car. And that sort of propelled me to the journey that I was on today. I guess 9 years. Like that was
that was a pivotal moment.
Yes.
That was that moment when all of a sudden something changed in you inside your head.
Yes.
And it's really powerful. I was listening to a story on another radio station, and they were talking about veterans. Veterans are more likely to have suicidal tendencies. And one of the movements that they're using is to encapsulate like their gun, how you hold a gun
Mm-hmm.
with a picture of their child.
Oh,
They literally embed it into it. So if somebody should pick up a
Yep.
handgun, the thing they see at that moment in time is that child.
wow.
And I'm thinking about you. You literally thought of your 8-year-old son, and you thought, maybe I don't want him to not know who I am. Really?
Yeah, and that is kind of ironic because I worked really hard to forget him because it hurt to think about him.
Oh,
You
I'm
know, so
sorry.
I worked really hard not to think of the thoughts when they'd come, they'd sting, and like
And
it
you
was.
just throw them off to the side, right?
Yeah,
It's like,
and
okay, let that go. Let that
again,
go.
it's that pain, right? That
Yeah.
we try to push down or hide or numb,
Mhm.
right? And that was part of it, right?
Wow.
So yeah, and there was this chip on my shoulder for a first couple years in recovery that I learned I had to separate myself from everybody else,
Mm.
and that my journey was mine
Yep.
and mine alone. And I think that was pivotal given where I was at and my philosophies of life at that time. And it allowed me to do the work that I do today, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I think that I didn't know that about you, and I think that's really interesting because I think people who are on their recovery journey, they put themselves in a group of people, whatever a traditional group, AANA or
we all
treatment
need
group,
community,
right?
Yeah.
But then there is that moment in time where you have to sort of become your own human.
Yes.
And you gotta devise and develop and grow and become who it is you're going to become next.
Yep.
You're going to have to move out of that,
Yes.
even though that group is good.
Yep.
And I say that because I belonged to an AA group for 17 years.
Yeah.
But I had to move to another direction.
Yep.
Not because they were bad, still in contact with some of them.
Yep.
Sadly, we just lost one of the most important people from that group, Billy Voigt. You are up there somewhere. I'm just saying his name. But you have to begin to develop who you are, because if you stay with that same group, or that same group has any sort of steps back into old community, old behaviors can happen, right?
Yeah. You show me who your friends are and I'll show you who you are.
Right.
And we're doing the work in the community, going back into the reservation, I guess the forest that got me sick, right? Using Don Coya's healing forest analogy, going back into the forest, there needed to be some boundaries and barriers that I needed to establish in order for me to find recovery there. And I think that helped initiate that boundary, going back into the community. Okay, that and understanding the full commitment of understanding that, okay, for me, I'm going to get ridiculed and teased. I'm going to, get ostracized from my old friend group. All of these things that I knew was going to happen. And I fully accepted that, like, you know what I mean? And the first time I seen my son when I got into recovery was a pivotal moment for me too. And
Tell me about that.
I don't like to, it's going to get, okay. So first of all, the things that we tell ourselves in recovery, that I'm unworthy, that I'm unlovable, that I'm not, I don't deserve this. I don't deserve to work hard. I don't deserve happiness, given the things that we've done. Right.
Yep.
All of those things happened when my son was 8 years old. I just got out of treatment. I had $300 in my pocket. And I paid it all to go out there. I didn't have no place to stay. I didn't, whatever. And all of these insecurities, when we pulled into the driveway, is he going to recognize me? Is he going to be scared of me? Is he going to, all of these things, right? And
all
I get
all negative,
all negative
all
things.
Negative. Yeah. You're just like living in that space.
And he's peeked behind his mom and he's seen me stand up out of the car, and I'm scared. Like, how is he going to respond? This is a big deal. And I seen this flash of recognition come on his face, and he come up to me and he gave me a hug. And I just remember the feeling of his little arms wrapped around my neck, and he's giving me and I remember I felt I didn't deserve this purity, this
innocence,
this love, just so unfiltered. And it was, and that was again a mentor of mine, Lloyd Keoch, Makpia Yohimini is his name. He just passed away last year, but he gave me a story a year into recovery where I was really sad. I just got a full-time job. I got my license. I got a year of recovery, all of these different things. And I financed a car and I was sad. And I was telling him, I don't know why I feel sad. I work hard for all these things. And he said, sometimes when we're so used to failing over and over and over again, that we don't know how to succeed, and how we talk to ourselves in that moment matters. Right. And so like, I started to tell myself that I deserve happiness, and I didn't believe it. And I
No.
still struggle with, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? That I
Mhm.
deserve happiness. I deserve to work hard. I deserve to help people. I deserve, you know what I mean?
And
that's
you also deserve the paycheck that
Yeah.
goes with it. You do
Yeah.
deserve that. Yeah.
Sometimes, as I wrestle with the philosophies of the field and that
Yes.
aspect, but yeah.
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 Well, wow. You just like my brain just
Yeah.
exploded. And what I want to take away and pull out from what you said, which I think is so important, is that there is messaging that we who have substance use disorder, there is messages that we have locked in our brains.
Yeah.
And I'm just interviewing folks for my next class. And somebody made the comment to me that, well, if somebody goes out to Target, they're in recovery and they go to Target and they still go out and they boost and they, they steal stuff, I don't know what I'm going to kind of do with that,
Yeah.
And I said, well, maybe what you could do is help that person figure out that that's their old lifestyle. They might be able to purchase it, but we're stuck.
Yeah.
We're stuck sometimes in behaviors or thoughts or patterns.
The stigma associated with society and how they view people, individuals with substance use disorder, and how they, manage their use is just like those microaggressions or things that we tell individuals that are suffering that you are somehow less than or worthy. It keeps them,
small.
Yeah.
Keeps people
right?
small. Yeah.
It keeps them on that hamster wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think, and I'm always our community knows a lot of this messaging, but I know there are people listening who I have people that are in recovery or people that are still deeply struggling with substance use disorder.
Yeah.
And it's like, please understand, these messages are real to us.
Yes.
They take a long time to unfurl. So, somebody goes to treatment for 60 days, maybe 90 days, man, they get in there for 6 months.
Yeah.
They should be good to go. All is well with the world.
Yeah.
Oh, heck no.
Yes.
Because there's still that maybe 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years of substance use that we have to unwind and re-understand ourselves. And then where do we fit? Like you said, where do I fit?
Yeah.
Where do I fit in society? Can I have a job? Can I have a car?
Do I deserve to make money?
Yeah.
Do I deserve, success? Do I deserve to be happy? Do I deserve recovery? Do I deserve to take care of myself after the things I've done? And it's just, to me, that is like the most prominent issue that I wish people can understand without a doubt of how valuable and awesome they are as a human being. Then if you understood that to your core, then would you still need substances to live your life if you knew that to your core? Right. You know what I mean?
But I think you said that in the early part of your story where you had the neglect and you had the potential abuse and you had all these trauma-oriented things happen. So the value that you didn't see value in yourself because everything around you was of so much trauma and so many events. So you don't see the world as positive. You see it as, I just gotta freaking survive.
Yeah. I'm unwanted. I'm unworthy. I'm abandoned. I'm, all of that
all
stuff.
those things. But then so many times an individual like yourself and many people find a group, i.e. a gang, or where you are air quotes that you are cared for, loved, appreciated, where in fact you might be a commodity to them. But how it's interpreted, because people say they care about you, they want you around, they want you to do whatever they want you. I mean, so people who get involved in that kind of lifestyle, there could be a reason why they do it because everything else has not turned out. And they got to find some place where they can find a version of acceptance. But
have some of their needs met.
And it might be the quirkiest, the worst, and you turn out to have a lot of activities that you're not proud of. But you still belong to something, a community. And we got to remember that it's building people's community around their recovery that is the most important thing. So people have a place to go where they're safe.
So segueing into the Native American Peer Recovery Services model, the way that kind of piggybacking off of the MRC and all the other models that exist, I think what gets lost in the sauce within tribal reservations is if we want somebody to maintain their recovery, there needs to be a system of, or an ecosystem of recovery around them, or a recovery oriented system of care around them that helps them reach goals, milestones, and have success within their life. But sometimes in some tribal reservations, they don't even have a recovery community that they can be a part of, right? And so the a little bit of the model that exists within NAPRS is that we help individuals to establish ecosystems of recovery, that there's all this awesomeness that's already in the community, but how can we pull it together, right? You know,
And
there's
then wrap recovery into it, right?
yes, like there's already places you can go for sweat lodge or harvest medicines or elders or get an Indian name or ceremonies and find fellowship, and but it's not like, but they're not cohesively working together, right? And so like, how do we bring that community element together and help navigate these places to enhance or to improve treatment outcomes, is kind of the little bit of the approach with nappers.
So so when somebody in the Native community goes to a treatment center, are they using like the Minnesota model, like the normal models in like on the reservations, or do they in treatment, do they accommodate some of the cultural aspects? Because, you know, sometimes you can have two different worlds. You can have a treatment model that doesn't match the human, and then you've got the human who needs to have the cultural aspects you just talked about. So does that have a blend at all?
So there are a few different organizations or centers within Minnesota that are culturally specific, like Mushkausen and Four Winds. But for the waiting list is long, and meeting the requirements to get in is can be sometimes extensive, and going through those processes. But like there's still places in the state of Minnesota where it's almost like shunned to smudge. Well, I wouldn't say shunned, but like
not accepted.
Yes, right. You know, so an individual that is starting their recovery journey, you know, having to, for example, go outside and exclude themselves from the facility or whatever to practice their spiritual beliefs or whatever. It just kind of screams of like colonization and exclusion, and
well, you're an outcast again.
And it's feeding back to that same thought process, those like microaggressions.
Like this is not accepted. This
you're
is
different.
You know, you go over there and you do that, but we don't know, we don't understand, so we're not gonna say, yeah, this is welcome.
Yes.
And that's my point, and that is we have to literally find these places and develop these spaces where people can be their authentic self.
Yes.
And when Colin came to me, maybe it's a year ago, and wanted to take the Minnesota Recovery Connection peer recovery specialist training that I've been training since he was a pup, and I'm like, you know, here, boom, I just threw it on you. And that's what Colin did, is he took it and he built it into what it is today and being taught to the community, so that these ideas of meet people where they're at, talk to them as a human, don't have any shoulds on them, give them an opportunity to develop themselves, you know, talk to them with non-stigmatizing, like all these things you get to put into a
so
it's so cool
to piggyback off of again, this is just maybe, I don't mean to try to give a TED Talk here, but one of the issues that
you TED Talk all you want, baby.
One of the issues that I have is how, okay, so like in terms of Native American, there's this thing called intergenerational trauma that exists from colonization, and boarding schools and Christianity and Catholicism and all of these things that were catastrophically impacted tribal communities. And so a lot of people hear the disparities, the numbers, and there's this weird I don't know how to say this, like savior complex
Yep.
or something that comes in. And I speak to myself, I can pick up on that, and it screams of colonization.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? And it's not meeting people where they're at, right?
Right.
And so many times I hear people talking about the homeless encampment or the disparities, and they're carving up all these plans of how to tackle it, but they're not inviting individuals from the community to come sit at the table. You know what I mean? And so like
they're just on the menu, as we put it.
Yeah, right. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Either you have a seat at the table or you're on someone's menu. And I think the philosophy screams of colonization, and it can re-trigger historical trauma. And so then there's this lack of trust between any kind of organization that's trying to provide services and the community. And so why would I trust anything that you say?
Of course.
You know what I mean? And so like, I think we need to have conversations to where we invite individuals to, like, what is it that we can do? How can we help? Right?
How can we work together?
Yes. Right. You know what I mean? And
wow.
And so like, I guess, and that's what I see a lot within the, I guess, climate or the things that happen at the state, because there is a ugly disparity that exists, and it needs to be addressed. But it needs to be addressed with the individuals and bringing people to the table to come up with solutions. And I believe that there already exist solutions within tribal communities, because we've gone through catastrophic historical traumatizing events in the past. And what were the tools that got us through those? Through genocide, right? And there was culture, ceremony, a sense of community, and the resilience that gained from having a sense of community and togetherness and connection to nature and our way of life and our language, carried us through those dark moments. And I think those are the same things that help carry us through the current drug epidemic that is going on in the community. But again, I may be full of crap too, though. You know what I mean? I'm
going to call it hopeful.
Yeah.
But I think you're absolutely right. I mean, the Native American community has been through historical
traumatizing.
Trauma is like almost too little a word. The change and the overtaking of the land and
the boarding schools, taking the kids.
I mean, all of it. So is there a strength in this group of humans? Absolutely.
Yes.
Is there a lot of anger and resentment, which I think maybe feeds and
historic mistrust?
Yeah. And so you made me you turned on like a huge light bulb as you're talking. And I'm thinking, here's a little Caddy coming up to the Native American communities, and we're doing the PRS training.
You invited, we had conversations.
I know. But it made me really realize that I was going up there with hopes to give you the information to help the community. And where I got a little bit right-sized and I understood more was, and you said, yes, Caddy, we need you, but here's what also we need. And I just realized that, we are in a space where I wanted to bring this to you thinking that this could save everything. But what it needed to do is it needed to do this growth where you took that base knowledge and then you customized it to fit the community. And that's what we need to do. We need to speak the right languages. We need to have the right conversations. We need to understand all the different, both visible barriers and invisible barriers, and then just shut up and listen.
Yes.
And that's the thing. That
even me.
Well, we all don't listen very well, because I think, if I were to say it from my voice, I want to help fix situations.
That's it. Yeah. Fixing, Caddy.
Yeah, I know. No fixing. Ixnay on the fixe. I mean, that's what we said. But that nature of wanting to help. So there's fix and there's help. Fix, we don't need to do. Help, walk alongside. That's what we need to do. And I have learned, after having conversations with Collin in the past and in trainings, and just understanding who he is and trying to do my very best as a middle-aged white woman who lives in the cities, but trying to just say, I just want to continue absorbing. I want to continue bringing on information.
I think they could drop you in anywhere on a planet and you'll be okay.
But I want everybody else to know that they can also drop out of what they're used to and just sit at a table and listen.
Yeah.
That's what we need to do. We need to listen to people who come from different spaces and places and say, no, I don't know it all. I want to, but I
Yeah.
don't.
Let's collaborate.
Let's collaborate. Let's
Yep.
all sit at the table, share our fry bread and our lefse,
Yeah,
both of
yeah.
them, have both of them
Yeah.
at the table, and
at
you know,
Starbucks.
and
Yeah.
a Starbucks, and yeah, whatever it is. But that's where the magic is when we actually talk and we share and we give one another and we take and we try to understand. So we're going to take another break. Oh my God, I wish I had like 5 hours with you, but you're going to be coming back again. But thank you for listening to Redefining Recovery Revolution here with Colin Cash, and we will be back. Thank you for listening to AM 950, the progressive radio station. Hello.
There's no song, and this house needs love.
I just love this music. It just makes me swing in my chair. So welcome back to Redefining Recovery Revolution. I'm here with...
Buju Nitamigabo, Indigenous Cuz, Colin Cash.
There you go. That's my man. That's Colin Cash. So we're going to continue this conversation. Colin Cash is a man who represents the Native American community. I've had the absolute honor and pleasure of doing trainings with and be partnership in this recovery journey. I've seen him as a little tot back in the day. Maybe mention just a wee bit about Sober Squad, because that was really your impetus of starting this journey.
Yeah. So,
and then I'm going to hang on just a second.
Okay.
Then I want him to talk about the work that he's doing with Minnesota state government to bring the Native community. And then also we as human beings that walk on this planet, what can we do, or what does an ally look to the recovery, the Native American community? A lot to do in 10 minutes, but we can do it.
Yeah. Okay. So Sober Squad was the community's response to the drug epidemic before a lot of harm reduction services sort of met the moment. And as we can see this year, that finally some of the policies and medicines that are out there are starting to drop the overdose rates.
Yep.
But in 2016, 17, and 18, a lot of these policies and funding sources didn't fully catch up.
Or maybe it didn't exist.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of barriers to MOUD and access back then, and stigma associated with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so in Mille Lacs, it was second in the state in overdose deaths behind White Earth. And I started participating in ceremonies, and that meant helping out at funerals in Mille Lacs, and it just affected me in a way to see so many families putting loved ones in the ground from opiates, and counterproductive to my 12-step background of abstinence-based, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. If you return to use, you didn't want it bad enough, you need to hit rock bottom sort of philosophy.
Yeah, which is so...
Yeah, and it was, how can we just get the dying to stop? And that meant a lot of harm reduction services, going in places where there's high drug use, and it was a hostile recovery environment. And how do we change the culture around the community around drug use or substance use disorder? And the community really responded, and it took off, and other people started to get involved, and social media was a very pivotal component to that of
developing Sober Squad,
and getting the messaging out there. The advocacy was in organizing was
and people taking it on and literally just saying, hey, we're going to do this, we're going to have a Sober Squad in this town, in this community, this place. So it worked.
People responded and supported it. MRC was vital in the collaboration of as far as resources and education and advocacy and things like that. But so was the elders and the resources that were pooled together, and the amount of time and volunteerism to where the community responded to, like, we're not going to take this anymore. And I get a lot of credit for it, but I think I just went first. You know what I mean? That's it. I just happened to go first and that gave people permission to advocate and and fund and train and made it okay,
Yeah,
right? You know what I mean?
you opened the door,
Yes.
and many now have followed.
Yeah.
So somebody had to crack that door open with a new idea on how to support maybe specific communities, but
Yep.
Sober Squad is welcome to all.
Yep.
But its origin is within the community. So now tell us a little bit about what you do on a state level.
This is a little bit of a nuanced answer, but so like I mentioned earlier, I'm the vice chair on the Governor's Advisory Council on Substance Use Disorders. And sometimes I feel like I am not the best qualified to sit at this table. I don't have a PhD with 20 years of experience and yada, 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 yada. However, but one thing that I do have is my lived experience, and and the disparities that exist within tribal communities is so horrific that if I am not on that top level advocating for change and culturally specific resources and things like that, then nobody else
is.
Yeah. And so I find myself ringing that disparity bell a lot in these meetings because I'm passionate about it. It's my community. And so and so that was not initially how I envisioned me being in this role, but the law says that the Governor's Advisory Council is specific to alleviating the disparities that exist.
There you go.
And so I bring that up a lot. Like, yes, there's all of these awesome policies that we can implement to change and help the state on a large level, you know what I mean? But that doesn't really
trickle down.
That doesn't target or affect the disparity as much. So I find myself like, hey, we need to work a little harder about these disparities. And I bring it up quite a bit. And so back to that, if not me, then who? And so that's sort of, but I, at the same time, working with really awesome, brilliant individuals where it's a collaboration and we work together and come up with solutions. And I learned so much from all of these brilliant minds. And I guess that's sort of,
well, I think that's the magic of it. And that is, you might not have the doctorate or this or that, but you have the lived experience and that you've seen it, you've lived it, you've been in it. So they haven't.
Yep.
So they might have a different idea, they might have a different perspective, but you get to bring them into the reality of what it is, and then it's that growth, those great minds working together.
Yes, collaborating, making sure that we focus on what the policies of the Governor's Advisory Council are for,
right?
You know, and just keep holding their feet to the fire in a sense.
And if we don't hold their feet to the fire, I mean, look at the movement that we have made with Narcan available everywhere, vending machines everywhere. I mean, we are saving more lives. We still have a lot of work to do, both in the Native community and the greater community, all of it. But what we've done is we have moved the proverbial I was going to say needle, and that was inappropriate.
Do it. Do it.
We've moved the needle. Got to be careful. But we've made movement.
Yep.
We haven't solved the problem, but what we're doing is that we're continuing to having conversations and shine the light on the worst, but then also shine the light on the best.
Yes.
And I'm sitting across from one of the best that shows up for the community. Yeah. He's shaking his head, folks. And I just got to say, that's why you're here. And that's why we have to do this conversation. We have to show up. So give me one tip that somebody like me, if there's one tip that somebody can do to be an ally, not fix, not make change, but just show up for the community. What does it one thing look like?
Well, and for me, I value authenticity. Like I can pick up when individuals are not being authentic or trying a little too hard to be a certain way and if we want to establish trust is the number one thing that needs to be established. And so being authentic and just be yourself and be authentic, and there's going to be some ups and ouches, but if you're authentic about it and you're genuine, the relationships can be built.
And that's where I think we can build that.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we are down to our last few seconds. Colin Cash, thank you so very much for being here and sharing your conversation. You'll be back again for another time, but I want to say thank you. And I've got you've got an event that I need to talk about, which is the Native American Peer Recovery Specialist Training in Cloquet. I can't read it.
June 16th through 20th. And then there's also the Wild Rice Roundup in Red Lake and at Camp Delwater.
So where can they find this information?
I will ask you to share it.
Okay, we'll share it on the Minnesota Recovery Connection website. So we'll have all that information. Colin Cash, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes, Redefining Recovery Revolution.